The envelope was sitting on my kitchen counter, like a small white grenade. Derek had hand-delivered it himself that morning, which should have told me something right there. I tore it open and read the words "Notice of Non-Compliance," and underneath that, "Garden plot must be converted to approved hardscape within 30 days or fines will begin accruing." Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Margaret Elaine Coffey. I am 72 years old, and I have lived in the same house on Birchwood Circle for going on 36 years. My late husband Harold bought this property in 1988, back when the street was young and the lots were wide. The house is modest, 3 bedrooms, a 2-car garage, cream-colored siding I repainted myself 3 summers ago. But the garden is something else entirely. Harold carved out a 40 by 20 foot plot along the south side of the house, right where the sun hits longest from dawn until about 4 in the afternoon. He hauled in topsoil by the wheelbarrow, built raised cedar beds with his own hands, and installed a drip irrigation system one hot weekend in July. He kept a garden journal in a plain composition notebook. What he planted when he planted it, what worked, what failed. He believed a garden notebook was the difference between a gardener and someone who just hoped for the best. I have 31 of those notebooks in a box under the guest room bed. Every spring we planted together. Sweet corn, pole beans, 4 varieties of heirloom tomato, zucchini that always got away from us by August. We gave bags of produce to every neighbor on the street. The children from the 4-H chapter who came out with Harold back in 2009, they are grown now, with gardens of their own. Mrs. Park at number 14 still tells people my cherry tomatoes are the best she has ever eaten. Harold died 8 years ago, and I kept planting. That garden is the only place I still feel him beside me. My daughter Carol lives 2 streets over, in the newer section of the neighborhood called Birchwood Run. She married Derek Pallister about 12 years back. Derek runs a mid-sized landscaping company and has opinions about everyone else's property delivered with the quiet confidence of someone who does this for a living. 4 years ago, the neighborhood voted him in as HOA board president, which did not improve his temperament. Carol and I have always been close, or I believed we were. She has her father's eyes and her mother's stubbornness, though she does not always know what to do with either one. I should have seen the small signs earlier. But small signs have a way of looking like nothing when you love someone. The first time Derek said something about my garden, we were at their house for the 4th of July. I had brought a bowl of my sun gold cherry tomatoes and a bunch of fresh basil tied with kitchen twine. Derek looked at the offering, then looked at me and said, "You know, Margaret, a nice ornamental bed would really raise your curb appeal." He said it pleasantly, the way a man says something he has been turning over in his mind for a while. I laughed and said I would think about it. Carol changed the subject. I tucked the comment in the back of my mind, where I keep things I am not yet sure what to do with. The following spring, Derek mentioned to Carol that the raised beds looked a little rough from the street. Carol passed this on to me carefully, the way she passes on Derek's opinions when she does not want to own them herself. I thanked her, went home, and built a clean new cedar border around the beds and added painted markers for each plant variety. I sent Carol a photo. I heard nothing back from Derek. I told myself everything was fine. I did not know it yet, but something had already been set into motion. Then last September, Derek called an HOA board meeting. I have a right to attend those meetings, and I usually do. I showed up that Tuesday evening with my reading glasses and a notepad, and settled into the third row of the community room at the clubhouse. Maybe 40 people. Derek stood at the front in a pressed blue button-down and launched into what he called the Birchwood Beautification Initiative. There were slides. Of course there were slides. The initiative outlined new property enhancement standards for the neighborhood. Approved mulch colors, 3 options, none of them the color Harold always chose. Fence height limits, lighting restrictions, and a new category Derek called hardscape compliance. He explained that vegetable gardens and utility plots over 200 square feet would require board approval and must meet new screening, drainage, and aesthetic standards as determined by the board. Non-compliant properties had 6 months to achieve compliance, after which fines would begin. My plot is 40 feet by 20 feet, 800 square feet. I raised my hand and asked whether existing gardens would be grandfathered under the new rules. Derek smiled the patient smile of a man who has already prepared his answer. He said the board had studied the question and determined that no grandfather clause applied. I wrote that down word for word and underlined it twice. The board voted 4-1 in favor. The one dissenting vote was Linda Marsh from the corner lot, who kept bees and had a large herb garden of her own. After the meeting, Linda found me in the parking lot and said quietly, "This isn't over." I told her she was probably right. Carol had been sitting near the side wall. She caught my eye as the meeting ended and gave me the same small, helpless shrug she has been giving me since she was a teenager. I smiled back and said nothing. What Dorothy Haas said to me 3 days later changed my entire approach. Dorothy has been in my Master Gardener cohort for 11 years. She is 74 years old, retired from the county assessor's office after 3 decades in land records, and she has the memory of a woman who spent her career knowing exactly where every document lived and why it mattered. When I described Derek's initiative, she went very quiet in a way I have learned to pay close attention to. Then she said, "Margaret, did Harold ever register that garden with the county extension office?" I thought about it. I said I honestly was not sure. Dorothy said, "Go look." I went through Harold's old filing cabinet in the garage that same weekend. It is a 4-drawer metal thing, gray and dented, and I have been meaning to organize it for 8 years. I pulled out folder after folder. Insurance records, car titles, appliance warranties for appliances I no longer own, tax returns going back to 1991, old irrigation system manuals. At the very bottom of the 4th drawer, behind a folder of seed catalogs Harold had saved, I found a manila folder labeled in his neat handwriting, Garden, County. What was in that folder stopped me cold. Harold had enrolled our garden in the County Extension Master Gardener Demonstration Garden program back in 2003. I had a vague memory of him mentioning it. What I had not known, what I had genuinely never thought about in 20 years, was that the enrollment included a signed cooperative agreement with the county. The agreement stated that, in exchange for maintaining the plot as an active educational and demonstration resource, the county would formally recognize the site as a protected horticultural resource. Harold had hosted elementary school groups. He had worked with the local 4-H chapter. He had brought the senior center out twice in early spring for composting lessons. All of it documented, right there in that folder, in Harold's careful handwriting and in the county's printed correspondence. The agreement had a 25-year term, signed in 2003 by Harold and the county extension director. Behind it was a 2015 renewal letter, automatic, sent by the county, signed and filed by Harold, and never once mentioned to me. That renewal ran through 2028. I sat on the cold concrete floor of that garage for a long time. The space heater clicked on. Outside, rain had started. I read every page twice, and then I read the key sections a third time to make sure I understood exactly what I was holding. Then I called Dorothy. She said I thought there might be something like that. She gave me 2 names. James Whitfield, the current county extension director, and Patricia Cole at the county attorney's office, who specialized in land use agreements. Be polite and be specific, Dorothy said. Those people respond well to specifics, and they do not respond well to drama. I made the first call the following morning after my coffee. James Whitfield listened without interrupting while I explained the situation and read him the agreement number from Harold's folder. He was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "Mrs. Coffee, that agreement is active and on file with this office. An HOA cannot compel conversion of a protected demonstration site without first petitioning this office for a formal release. Has anyone from your association contacted us?" I said no. He said, "Then any enforcement action against that property would be legally problematic at best." He offered to prepare a written statement confirming the agreement's status, and I thanked him and said yes. The call to Patricia Cole confirmed everything Whitfield had said. Then she mentioned something I had not asked about. Derek's landscaping company had received HOA payment for common area work in 3 of the 4 years of his board presidency. The HOA bylaws included a conflict of interest disclosure clause for board members doing paid business with the association. She mentioned it carefully as a matter of public record without accusation. I wrote it down. I spent 2 evenings at my kitchen table going through the HOA bylaws with a yellow highlighter and a notepad. I found the conflict of interest clause on page 11. I found the resident appeal provision on page 14. Harold always said that the people who write the rules rarely expect anyone to read them all the way through. That detail Patricia Cole had mentioned almost in passing turned out to matter more than I expected. The third thing I did was reach out to the neighbors I knew had been cited. Linda Marsh with the Bee Garden, Frank and Rosemary Decker, whose raised planter boxes had been flagged, Mr. Tran across the street, whose front yard moon garden had received a notice. I invited them each for coffee on a Saturday morning and laid out what I had found in plain language. I showed them the county documents. I told them what the extension director had said. I watched their faces change. Linda said, "So what do we do?" I told her to come to the April board meeting, bring whatever documentation she had, and stay calm. She looked at me for a moment. Then she nodded. 3 weeks after that coffee, Derek hand-delivered the 30-day notice to my kitchen counter. The one I found waiting for me like a grenade. I read it and filed it in Harold's folder, right behind the county agreement. The April board meeting was on the first Tuesday of the month. I wore my navy blazer and the pearl brooch Harold gave me on our 20th anniversary. I made copies of every relevant document: the 2003 agreement, the 2015 renewal letter, James Whitfield's written statement, and a plain 2-page summary I had typed up myself at my desktop computer. 1 packet per board member, plus individual copies for Derek, for Linda, for the Deckers, and for Mr. Tran. I arrived 15 minutes early and took the front row. Derek came in a few minutes later, saw me, and nodded pleasantly across the room. He had absolutely no idea. Carol was along the side wall, the way she always sat at these things. She looked at the folder in my lap, then at my face. I gave her a calm smile and turned back to the front. The meeting opened with routine business. Assessment updates. Maintenance schedules for the common areas. Then Derek moved to what he called the enforcement update, his phrase for the list of homeowners still out of compliance with the beautification initiative. My name was near the top of that list. He was explaining the May 1st fine schedule when I raised my hand. He said, "We'll take questions at the end, Margaret." I said, "This one cannot wait, Derek. It involves a legal matter the board needs to hear before it takes any further enforcement action." Someone behind me shifted in their chair. The room went quiet in the particular way rooms go quiet when something is about to change. I stood up. I spoke slowly and clearly. I explained that my garden plot was the subject of a formal cooperative agreement with the County Extension Office, executed in 2003 and renewed through 2028. That under state agricultural preservation statute, no homeowners association could compel conversion of a site under active county cooperative protection without first filing a formal release petition with the Extension Office. That the County Extension Director, James Whitfield, had confirmed in writing that the agreement was active and that no petition had been filed by our association. I then set a copy of the document packet in front of each board member, one by one. I placed the last copy directly in front of Derek and said, "There is a copy here for you as well, Derek." He did not reach for it. I said I also wanted to note, as a point of information and not as an accusation of any kind, that our bylaws included a conflict of interest disclosure requirement for board members conducting paid business with the association, and that I would encourage the board to review its own records on that point at its discretion. I said it evenly. Then I sat back down. The room was quiet for just a moment. Then Linda Marsh stood up. She spoke about her situation calmly, with her own documentation in hand. Frank Decker stood next. Then Mr. Tran, moving slowly with his hands on the back of the chair in front of him, said in a quiet voice that he had lived on this street for 22 years and had never once received a complaint about his garden until this year. Derek asked for a 5-minute recess. No one in the room moved. When the meeting resumed, the board voted 3-2 to table all enforcement actions pending legal review. The two members who voted with Derek looked as though they would have preferred to be anywhere else that Tuesday evening. Derek said the board would conduct a thorough review of all outstanding policies. His voice was even and measured. His jaw was tight. He did not look in my direction once. Carol found me in the parking lot afterward. The night air was cool and smelled like new grass coming up. She stood for a moment looking at the asphalt, then looked up at me. She said, "Mom, I didn't know about the county agreement. I told her I knew that." She said I should have pushed back sooner. From the beginning, when he first started making comments about your garden, I did not argue with her about what she should have done. I put my arm through hers, and we walked to my car together in the dark. 3 weeks later, the HOA sent written notice to all cited properties that the hardscape compliance rule was being suspended indefinitely pending further review. James Whitfield did contact the HOA board directly. Dorothy told me the county's position had been quite clear. I was not part of that conversation. I did not need to be. Derek's landscaping company has not received an HOA contract since then. I heard through Linda that he stepped down from the board presidency at the end of his term in June, citing time constraints with his business. I wished him well when Carol told me. I meant it genuinely. I got a card in the mail 2 weeks after the meeting. It was from Mr. Tran. No letter inside, just a small photograph he had printed of his moon garden in full bloom. On the back, in careful handwriting, it said only, "Thank you, neighbor." I pinned it to my refrigerator, next to a photo of Harold, holding the first zucchini we ever grew on Birchwood Circle. It is still there. That May, I planted the garden the way Harold and I always did. Pole beans on the back trellis. Brandywine, Cherokee purple, green zebra, and sun gold tomatoes, 4 varieties just as always. I added a new raised bed on the east end, just because I could, and filled it with zinnias and dahlias for the first time. Dorothy came over on a Saturday to help me stake the tomatoes. We drank iced tea on the back steps when we finished, and I told her I was thinking of helping Linda and the Deckers enroll their gardens in the county demonstration program as well. Carol has been coming around more often lately. She brought the grandchildren out last Saturday and let them pick tomatoes. My youngest grandson took a sun gold off the vine and ate it right there, juice running down his chin, eyes going wide the way Harold's always did the first taste of summer. Harold used to say that was the true test of a good tomato, a child who could not wait to wash it. Dorothy said Harold would be proud of me. I said Harold would have handled the whole thing more gracefully, without the big meeting and the document packets. She laughed and said, "That is absolutely true, and he would be the first one to tell you so." I go out to the garden every morning now, just after sunrise. I put my hands in the soil, and I feel the season moving through me, and I think about what Harold built here and what I have kept alive. 36 years of growing things. I am not done yet. If you have ever had to fight for something that mattered deeply to you, something people tried to tell you was small or easily replaced, tell me about it in the comments. I would love to know your story. The hostess set the birthday cake on the table at 7:45, right on schedule. 8 chairs. 1 woman. I watched the candles burn all the way down, and then I blew them out myself. Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Ruth Ellen Hartley, and I am 75 years old. I have lived most of my life in the same medium-sized city in central Ohio, in the house that my husband Gene and I bought the year Marcus was born. Gene passed 3 years ago this April, after a long illness that we handled the way we handled most things, together, quietly, without making it harder than it had to be. 49 years of marriage. Not quite 50. That gap still catches me sometimes, usually on a Tuesday afternoon when there is no reason for it. Gene and I had 1 son. Marcus is 44 now, dark-haired like his father and quick to laugh, which I always loved about him. After Gene died, Marcus showed up. He came over twice a week for the first 6 months. He handled the paperwork, the calls to the insurance companies, the cleaning out of the workshop. He held me up through all of it. I want you to remember that part because it matters to the story. 18 months ago, Marcus married a woman named Devin. She is smart, organized, and very focused on what she calls building a life. I have tried to like Devin, and I think on some level I do. But from almost the first day, I noticed I was being sorted. Not quite family. Not quite guest. Something that did not quite have a word for it. Devin comes from a prominent family. Her parents, the Hargroves, have a horse farm in Connecticut, a condominium in Sarasota, and from what I understand, a boat that lives in a marina somewhere. I am not saying any of that is wrong. I am simply telling you what I was navigating. What I noticed first was small. Small enough that I told myself I was imagining it. Marcus used to call me on Sunday mornings, the way he had since his 20s. Then Sunday mornings became Sunday afternoons. Sunday afternoons became Sunday evenings. And Sunday evenings started getting shorter. I learned later that Devin's family had Sunday dinners, the long, formal kind with multiple courses, and Marcus had started attending those. I understand that. Marriage is a rearrangement. I understand it. But I noticed. I should have mentioned the lake house earlier in this story, because it is important. Jean and I bought it in 1989, a cedar-sided cabin on Millbrook Lake, about 2 hours north of the city. We put 30 years of summers into that place. Marcus learned to fish off the dock there. He had his first bonfire there. When Jean got very sick, we spent 2 full weeks at the lake house the summer before he died, just the 3 of us, because Marcus insisted on it. I have not forgotten. After Jean passed, everyone assumed I would sell the lake house. Too much to maintain alone, they said. Too far to drive by yourself. I said no. I said it still had things to give. I did not know then how true that would turn out to be. My birthday is June 14th. Marcus has known that date for every one of his 44 years. In our family, birthdays were not optional occasions. Jean started planning mine in May every single year. Even after Marcus grew up and moved out, even through busy seasons and tight years, we always showed up for each other. That was not a written rule. It was just who we were. This past spring, in late April, Marcus called on a Sunday evening. He sounded rushed. He mentioned, almost in passing, that the Hargroves were throwing a large party to celebrate their wedding anniversary. June 14th. He laughed a little when he said it. He said, "Can you believe the timing?" He said he and Devin were flying out to Connecticut for the weekend. I asked about my birthday dinner. He said, "Mom, we will do something when we get back. A rain check. You understand?" I said yes. Of course. I understand. I hung up the phone and sat in Jean's old reading chair for a long time. 3 weeks before my birthday, Marcus added me to a family group text. He said it was to coordinate summer plans. What it actually did was show me every conversation that followed. I watched the Hargrove party fill up that screen over the next 10 days. The dress code, the caterer, the hotel rooms being reserved in Greenwich. I watched my sister Carol type, and I quote her directly, "Cannot wait." The Hargroves really know how to throw a party. Carol has come to my birthday dinner every single year since we were children. Every year. Without fail. She did not mention my birthday. Not once. My grandchildren were going too. Devin's children from her first marriage. 2 kids who had started calling me Grandma Ruth without being asked, which I had loved from the moment they began. They were excited about the horses at the Hargrove farm. I watched all of this from Jean's old chair, in the house we built together, and I understood something for the first time. I was not forgotten by accident. I was forgotten by arrangement. And not one person in that group text had paused to think, what about Ruth? What about her birthday? What I found in the cedar chest that night changed everything about what I decided to do next. I had opened the chest, looking for a sweater. It sits on the floor of my bedroom closet, and I had not opened it in 2 years. On top of the sweater was a photograph. Jean and me on the dock at Millbrook Lake. June 14th, 1992. My 41st birthday. Jean had rigged a handmade banner between 2 pine trees with the help of the children from the cabin next door. They had misspelled a word in the most cheerful way possible, but I kept that banner until it fell apart. I cannot look at that photograph without feeling the dock boards under my feet and smelling the lake water and hearing Jean laugh at himself. I sat on the edge of the bed with that photograph for a long time. Jean had a saying I heard him use dozens of times, usually when someone in a business negotiation was being short-sighted. He said that some lessons cost nothing to teach, as long as you are patient enough to let the student do most of the work. I thought about that. I thought about the lake house. I thought about Millbrook in August, the light on the water in the early morning, the way it looks like something painted by a person who loved what they were doing. I thought about who held the deed to that property and exactly what that meant. And then I made a decision. Not an angry one. I want to be clear about that. Anger had already passed through me and gone. What had taken its place was quieter and more lasting, the kind of resolve that does not need to raise its voice. I was going to let them do the teaching themselves. The next morning, I called Patricia Elms, who has been my attorney for 22 years. She drew up Jean's will. She knows our family history the way a good doctor knows a patient's chart, with context and care and no judgment. I asked her to meet me at her office on Thursday and told her I wanted to review the deed to the lake house and understand every option available to me. I also called Beverly and Lorraine, my 2 oldest friends. Beverly has known me since 1978, when we were both young mothers on the same dead-end street. Lorraine moved to Dayton 12 years ago, but drives up twice a month, because that is simply the kind of person she is. I told them what had happened. Not the wounded version. Just the facts set out plainly, one after another. Beverly was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Ruth, what are you going to do?" I said, "I am going to have the best birthday I have ever had. And then I am going to think very carefully about August." Beverly laughed so hard, I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Thursday, I sat across from Patricia in her small conference room overlooking Elm Street, and she pulled out everything on the lake house. The deed was clean. No liens, no encumbrances, no other names on it. Jean and I had paid it off in 2011. It was mine outright, to do with exactly as I chose. Patricia also had information about vacation rental platforms. She had helped another client navigate one the previous year. She walked me through how the contracts worked, what protections I should have in place, what pricing looked like for a lakefront property in that part of Ohio in summer. She is thorough. That is why I have used her for 22 years. I went home and listed the lake house that same week. I priced it fairly for August and September, and I wanted it rented before Marcus ever thought to call about summer plans. It was fully booked within 19 days. I also called a travel agent I had used before Jean got sick. I booked 10 days on a river cruise along the Columbia River in Oregon. I had been looking at that trip for 3 years, and illness had postponed it twice. I put the deposit on my Visa card on a Friday afternoon and felt not one single moment of hesitation. Then I called the restaurant where I had made my birthday reservation. I kept all 8 seats. I called 7 women: Beverly, Lorraine, my neighbor Dorothy, my friend Jean from church, my college roommate Sylvia, who I had not seen in 2 years, but who said yes before I had finished the sentence, and 2 women from my book club, Margaret and Faye. People who have never once needed reminding that June 14th exists on the calendar. I left the group text exactly as it was. I wanted to see what else I might learn. I learned nothing else. Not one word about my birthday. Not from anyone in that chat. Not a single word. June 14th came on a Saturday. Marcus sent a text at 7 in the morning. "Happy birthday, Mom. We will celebrate when we are back. Lots of love." Devin sent a heart emoji. My sister Carol sent a digital birthday card, the animated kind with confetti that bounces across the screen. My grandchildren, to their absolute credit, sent a voice message of themselves singing happy birthday in 3-part harmony, slightly off-key and completely sincere. I saved that one. I have listened to it more than once since. Then I put on the blue dress I had bought at Nordstrom back in April, the one I had been saving for exactly the right occasion, and I drove to the restaurant. We stayed until they turned the lights up at closing. Dorothy gave a toast that had every woman at the table in tears, and then laughing and then back in tears again. Beverly had brought a bottle of champagne she had been holding since her son's wedding in 2019. Waiting for exactly the right moment. We drank all of it. My roommate Sylvia told a story about our first year of college that I will not repeat here because it is not flattering to either of us, but every word of it was true, and we laughed until none of us could breathe. It was the best birthday I had celebrated in years, maybe in a decade. The moment I want to tell you about came 3 weeks later. Marcus called on a Sunday afternoon, using the relaxed, easy voice he gets when life is going his way. He said the Hargrove party had been beautiful. He said Connecticut in June was really something. Then he asked how my birthday had been, a little quickly, in the careful way people ask when they are hoping the answer will be short. I told him it was wonderful. He said good, good. Then he said, "So listen, Mom, Devin and I have been talking about Millbrook in August. We wanted to bring her parents up to the lake house and show them the area. Her father loves to fish. I thought we could do a full week, maybe longer if the kids can make it. Is the 3rd week of August open?" I let him finish. Then I said, "Marcus, I need to tell you something about the lake house." He said, "Sure, what is going on?" I said, "I have rented it out. For August and September both. Through a vacation rental company. Patricia helped me with the contracts. It was listed about 3 weeks ago, and it was fully booked within 19 days. The silence that followed had weight to it. The kind that you can feel through a telephone. He said, "You rented the lake house." I said, "It turns out a great many people love Millbrook in August. I cannot say I blame them." He said, "Mom, we always use the lake house in August. We always have." I said very gently, "I know we do, sweetheart." I assumed this year would be no different until I learned that other plans had come up. He was quiet again for a moment. Then he said, "Is this about your birthday?" I said, "Marcus, I am 75 years old. I own a beautiful piece of property on a beautiful lake. I think it is past time I started treating it that way. And treating myself that way too." He said, "Mom, I know I should have, I know," and then his voice stopped finding words. I said, "I love you very much." I am not angry with you. But I am going to be on the Columbia River in August, and the lake house is rented through September. Let us plan something for October, with enough notice that everyone who wants to come can arrange to be there. I heard it in the long pause before he spoke again. The specific sound of someone understanding not just what they have lost, but why. Not the lake house. Not the week of vacation. Something harder to name than either of those things. Something that had been sitting in a drawer quietly for months. He said, "I am sorry, Mom." I said, "I know you are." And I meant it when I said it. I left for Oregon on August 3rd. Lorraine drove me to the airport and held on to me at the departure's curb for a long moment before she let go. Beverly had slipped a small photo album into my carry-on bag without telling me. I found it at the gate, sitting there waiting like a gift. Pictures from the birthday dinner. All 7 of us, Dorothy mid-toast, champagne glasses catching the light, Sylvia with her head thrown back laughing. I sat in that airport chair with the album in my lap and felt something I can only describe as settled. Like the ground was exactly where I had left it. The Columbia River is more beautiful than any photograph can hold. I am telling you that as someone who spent 10 days watching it move under every kind of light. When I came home, there was a card from Marcus waiting on the porch steps. Not a text, not an emoji. A real card from a proper stationery store, the kind with thick paper that has some weight to it, written in his handwriting. He said things I will keep to myself because they belong between a mother and her son. But I stood there on the porch in the late afternoon light and read it twice, and then I carried it inside and set it in the cedar chest, right next to the photograph from the dock. The lake house rental brought in more money that summer than I had expected. Patricia tells me if I rent it 4 to 6 weeks a year, it covers its own taxes and upkeep with money to spare. I have already booked a trip to coastal Maine for October. And yes, Marcus and Devin are coming to dinner at my house before I leave. Devin brought flowers when they came. Yellow ones, which happen to be my favorite, and I have never once told her that. She looked at me differently than she ever had before. Not like a category. Not like something to be organized and managed. Like a person. Like someone worth knowing on her own terms. That was all I had ever wanted from her. My birthday next year falls on a Sunday. I have already started making plans. Jean used to say that dignity is not something other people give you. It is something you remind them you have always had. I think he was right about most things. And about that one more than most. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to remind the people you love that you were worth showing up for? I would love to hear your story. When my son walked into my kitchen that Sunday morning holding a folded contract from a property management company, he was smiling like a man who had already won. He set it on the table between us and said, "Mom, you can finally relax. We've taken care of everything." I looked at that paper, then I looked at him and I said very quietly, "I know you have, sweetheart. So have I." Let me take you back to how it all started. My name is Rosemary. I am 73 years old, and I have lived in this house on Clover Street in Columbus, Ohio for 41 years. My late husband Gerald and I bought the duplex next door in 1998, 2 years before he passed. It wasn't glamorous. It was a side-by-side, 2 units, beige siding, a shared driveway, a furnace that took some persuading every February. But Gerald always said, "Rosie, real estate pays you while you sleep." He said it the day we signed the papers. He said it every time I called a plumber or posted a vacancy notice. I can still hear him saying it. He was right. I learned to manage that property the way I learned everything else in my life, by paying attention and doing the work. I screened tenants carefully. I kept the books in a ledger my mother gave me, and later on a spreadsheet my granddaughter helped me set up. I knew every repair that building had ever needed. I kept a folder with every receipt and every inspection report going back to the day we signed. I knew that the pipes in Unit B ran hot in summer, so I always warned new tenants about the water pressure in July. I was not just the owner of that duplex. I was the landlord. There is a difference, and I have always understood it. My son Derek is 51. He lives about 40 minutes north of me with his wife Pamela and their 2 boys. Derek is a good man in the ways that tend to count in public. He shows up for holidays. He calls on Sundays. He has a firm handshake, a nice truck, and a very high opinion of his own common sense. The trouble with Derek is that he has never quite believed I know what I'm doing. I have watched that belief operate quietly in him for years. It shows up as suggestions. It shows up as questions framed as concern. It shows up as that particular look a person gets when they've already decided you're barely managing, but they're too polite to say so directly. It started small. They usually do. About 2 years ago, Derek came by to help me with a leaky gutter. I appreciated that. Truly. While he was up on the ladder, he noticed my long-term tenant Carol moving boxes out of Unit A. Carol had been with me for 11 years. She'd found a place closer to her daughter and given me 60 days notice, just as our lease required. I told Derek all of this. He nodded, but I could see something shift behind his eyes. "You know, Moms," he said, climbing down, "managing a rental property is a lot. You're not getting any younger." I smiled. I offered him pound cake. I appreciated the gutter. But he wasn't done. "Have you thought about what you'd do if you had a bad tenant? Or a major repair?" I told him I had a reserve fund, a lawyer I trusted, and 30 years of experience. He said, sure. That sure is where it all began. After that, Derek started texting me questions about the duplex. Not asking. Questioning. "Did you check references on the new tenant?" "Yes, Derek." "Did you raise the rent to market rate?" "I set the rate where I set it, Derek." "You know you're probably leaving money on the table." I told him the table was mine, and the money was doing just fine on it. I should have paid more attention to what came next. Because about 4 months after Carol left, I found something in my mailbox that made my stomach drop. It was a brochure for a property management company called Keystone Realty Services. Slick paper, color photos, a tagline about taking the stress out of ownership. There was a handwritten sticky note on the front that said, "Mom thought this might help." A day. I set it on the counter. I didn't throw it away. I just set it there and thought about it. The new tenant in Unit A was a young woman named Brianna. She was a nurse, quiet, kept the place immaculate, paid her rent 3 days early every single month. I liked her from the first conversation. We had a standing agreement that she'd text me if anything needed attention, and I'd have someone out within 48 hours. It worked beautifully. She once left a small pot of rosemary on my porch because she said it seemed like something I'd like. And she was right. So when Brianna texted me on a Tuesday in March, I expected it to be about the squeaky hinge on the bathroom door I'd been meaning to fix. It was not about the hinge. She wrote, "Hi, Rosemary, just wanted to check in." I got a call from a man named Kyle at Keystone Realty about my lease renewal. He said they were taking over management starting next month, and I'd be submitting payments to a new portal. I wanted to make sure this was coming from you before I responded. Is everything okay? I read that text 3 times. I sat down at my kitchen table. I set the phone face down on the wood. I counted to 10 the way my own mother taught me, because she said the first 10 seconds after bad news belong to your feelings, and everything after that belongs to your mind. Then I picked up the phone and wrote back to Brianna, "Thank you for checking with me first. Do not respond to that call. I will be in touch shortly." Then I called Derek. He answered on the second ring, cheerful as ever. "Hey, Mom. I was actually going to call you this week." "I imagine you were." I said, "Derek, did you contact a property management company about my duplex?" A pause. "I just reached out to get some information. I thought we could talk about it." "Did you give them Brianna's phone number?" Another pause. Longer this time. "They asked for the tenant contact for outreach purposes." "Mom, I was just trying to help. Pamela and I have been talking, and we really think." "Derek," I said, "we'll talk about what you think on Sunday." I hung up. What I did between that Tuesday and Sunday is the part of this story that matters most. I want to be clear about something. I was not angry. I was something quieter and more useful than angry. I was decided. I had watched other women in my position lose their footing in moments exactly like this one. They got flustered. They agreed to things they didn't want because they couldn't bear the tension at the dinner table. I had seen my friend Loretta sign over decision-making on her mother's house to a nephew she barely knew, and it took 2 years and considerable heartache to untangle. I was not going to be Loretta. I got out my legal pad, and I wrote 3 things at the top of the page. What do I own? What do I control? What do I want this to look like in 5 years? The answers were simple. I own the duplex outright. Gerald and I had paid it off in 2011. My name, and only my name, was on that deed. I controlled every penny of income from that property and every decision about its management. And in 5 years, I wanted to still be the one sitting at the table. Then I made a list of everything I needed to do. Quietly, specifically, one thing at a time. The first thing I did Monday morning was call my attorney, a woman named Frances who has handled my legal affairs since 1997 and who has never once made me feel like a bother. I told her everything. I asked her to draft a formal cease and desist letter to Keystone Realty Services, informing them that no representative of mine had engaged them, that they had no legal authority to contact my tenants, and that any further contact would be treated as interference with an existing landlord-tenant relationship. Frances said, "Done by noon." That's why I've kept her for almost 30 years. The second thing I did was call Brianna and explain the full situation. I told her exactly what had happened, that my son had acted without my knowledge or authorization, and that absolutely nothing about her lease was changing. She was gracious and understanding. She also told me, quietly, that Kyle from Keystone had called twice, and that during the second call he'd mentioned the rent would be going up by $200 when the new management took over. I wrote that down. The third thing I did was call my bank and move the rent deposit to a separate account that Derek did not know existed. It was my money in my bank. Gerald had always said to keep your accounts organized and your access private. I'd grown a little relaxed about that over the years. I corrected it. The fourth thing I did is the one Derek still doesn't know about. I called my estate planning attorney, a different man named Harold who had set up my trust years ago when the children were young. I asked him to review the succession plan for the duplex specifically. I wanted to ensure that if anything ever happened to me, the property would go precisely where I intended, and that no family member could appoint or authorize any third-party management company without the explicit, documented approval of my trustee. Harold and I had a very productive 2 hours. When I left his office, I felt the kind of settled that comes from knowing exactly where you stand. I also wrote a letter to Derek that week. Not an angry letter. A clear one. I did not mail it. I put it in the drawer in my bedroom, under my reading glasses, where I keep the things I need to come back to. Sunday came. Derek arrived at 11, which is when I'd asked him to come. Pamela was with him. She came in looking careful, the way people look when they know a difficult conversation is ahead, but aren't sure yet how serious it will be. I offered them both coffee. I had made a coffee cake, because I believe it is entirely possible to feed someone while also holding your ground. We sat at the kitchen table. I had the cease and desist letter in front of me, folded. I had my legal pad. I had my coffee. I had the coffee cake. Derek started before I could. Mom, I want to say up front that I know I should have talked to you first. I just got ahead of myself. We were only trying to help. He looked at Pamela. She nodded. I know you were. I said, and I meant it. Tell me what you actually did. All of it. From the beginning. There was a pause. Then Derek laid it out. He had contacted Keystone about 6 weeks ago. He had provided them with Brianna's contact information. He had told them he would be speaking with me about transitioning the management and that he expected I would come around. He had, and this is where his voice went a little quieter, told them they could go ahead and reach out to Brianna directly because he was confident the arrangement would be formalized before long. He expected I would come around. I let that sit in the air between us for a moment. Derek, I said, how much was the management company going to charge? He told me 8% of monthly rent plus maintenance coordination fees. And the rent increase for Brianna. He said it was their standard procedure for bringing properties to current market rate. She has been my tenant for 2 years. I said, she has never been a single day late. She communicates with me perfectly. She takes care of that unit as though it is her own home. A $200 increase would have sent her looking for somewhere else to live. I paused. And you authorized a management company to contact her before you said a single word to me. Mom, I just think. I know what you think. I said, you think I'm struggling. You think this is too much for me. You have thought that for 2 years, and you've been managing around me rather than talking to me. I picked up my coffee cup. I want to show you something. I unfolded the cease and desist letter and pushed it across the table. He read it. His face changed. Francis sent that to Keystone on Monday. I said, they will not be contacting Brianna or any other party connected to my property. I also spent 2 hours last week with my estate planning attorney reviewing the trust documents for the duplex. The succession plan is now very specifically written, and it includes a provision that no family member may authorize third-party management of this property without the documented approval of my trustee. I folded my hands around my coffee cup. I also changed the rent deposit account. Pamela was looking at the table. Derek was quiet for a long moment. When he looked up, there was something different in his face. Not embarrassment exactly. Something more like the expression a person gets when they understand, for the first time, the full weight of what they've done. Mom, he said, I wasn't trying to take anything from you. I know that. I said, and I did know it. But you acted as though what was mine needed someone else to manage it. And that's the part we need to fix between us. He nodded slowly. He said, I'm sorry. Plainly, without deflection or explanation. I believed him. I slid the coffee cake toward him and handed him a fork. Good. I said. Now let me tell you about the pipes in Unit B and why July is a very important month for that building. It is time you actually learned how this property works. That was 8 months ago. Brianna renewed her lease on the same terms we've always had. She brought me a poinsettia at Christmas and stayed for tea, and told me about a new position she'd accepted at the hospital. The duplex is doing exactly what Gerald always said it would do. It pays me while I sleep. Derek and I talk every Sunday, same as before. He has not offered any unsolicited property management advice since that morning at my kitchen table. What he has done is ask, once, if he could come by when I had a plumber out, because he wanted to understand how I handle maintenance calls. I said yes. He brought both boys with him. My grandsons helped me take measurements in unit, while Derek stood beside the plumber, asking careful questions and writing things down in a small notebook. I watched my son take notes that afternoon. Listening. Learning. Asking before assuming. He looked like a man in the middle of understanding something important. I believe he was. Harold and I have a trust review scheduled for the spring, as we do every 2 years. Francis sent me a very satisfying invoice for that cease and desist letter. I paid it the same week it arrived. The letter I wrote to Derek is still in the drawer under my reading glasses. I don't think I'll need to send it now. But I'm glad I wrote it. Sometimes the clearest thinking we do is for an audience of one. Gerald would have liked how this turned out. He always said the best way to keep something you love is to make sure the people around you understand exactly how much you love it, and exactly how well you understand it yourself. I am 73 years old. I have been the landlord of that duplex for 25 years. I have never missed a tax filing, never had an eviction go sideways, never had a tenant leave without a proper move-out inspection. I keep a reserve fund, a meticulous paper trail, and 2 excellent attorneys on speed dial. I know the name of every repairman who has ever set foot in that building. The first person Whoever seriously doubted any of that was my own son. And the last, tell me in the comments, have you ever had someone in your family try to take over something that was yours, all in the name of helping? I'd love to hear your story.